Broadcasting live from the Business RadioX studios in Atlanta, Georgia, it's time for High Velocity Radio.
Lee Cantor here, another episode of High Velocity Radio, and this is going to be a good one. Today on the show, we have Scott Mautz, author of the new book, The Mentally Strong Leader. Welcome, Scott.
Thanks so much for having me here, Lee. I appreciate what you do and looking forward to sharing what I've learned with your audience.
Well, I am excited to learn what you're up to, but before we get into the book, can you tell us a little bit about your backstory?
Yeah, you bet. I was born and raised in corporate America, spent just about 3 decades in corporate America, really studying over time what makes great leaders great and what makes really achievers achieve. And have been studying that for quite a long time and decided to leave the corporate world about 8 or 9 years ago to broaden my platform for making a difference with the written and the spoken word, which is what I do now. You know, I speak from stage, I do workshops, I write business books, one which we'll be talking about here today.
So what was it like leaving kind of the corporate world and then entering into the world of entrepreneurship and having your own business? Was there a mindset shift you needed in order to be successful in this new venture?
Yeah, for sure. A big part of it, Lee, was, just understanding what really, really made me happy. When I was in the corporate world, I found after some time I was, chasing approval more than I was chasing authenticity, more than chasing who I really was and what I really wanted to be. So, it took a leap of faith and, the topic of my new book, The Mentally Strong Leaders, it's all about mental strength. It took a lot of mental strength to really muster up the courage to be able to do that, to leave behind a really great career with a great corporate world company and make the leap. But, I find myself constantly saying now as a speaker and an author and a workshopper, it's the best move I ever made in my life. And I'm so glad I did it.
Now, can you share a little bit about where you were at mentally when you were contemplating making this leap? What was kind of going through your head in maybe calculating the trade-offs you would be having to make in order to do this new thing?
Yeah, great question. I boiled down to me, Lee, really to one question that I just kept asking over and over so that I wouldn't get overwhelmed, right? Because that's a big decision. Do I stick around? Do I keep getting promoted in this corporate world and, with all the nice trappings that come with it? Or do I take a leap and, do I go out and be an entrepreneur and a speaker, an author, and a writer? And you can get overwhelmed by doing the list of pros and cons. And so I just kept going back, at the time to one question over and over and over again. Where will I have the chance to have a broader impact on the most people? Will it be waiting for the next promotion in corporate life and having, a couple hundred more people under my charge? Or, will it be building a platform with the written and the spoken word? And once I kept coming back to that question, Lee, it became patently obvious that the way I was going to have the best impact was as a keynote speaker, author, writer, and workshopper. And with that in mind, the decision became very, very clear.
Now, do you think that a younger you could have come to the same conclusion prior to having a corporate career?
It's a really good question. And, obviously, I guess we'll never know. But I would suspect that I may still have been able to do that only because I became so clear on what really drove me was this desire to learn what makes great leaders great and what makes achievers achieve. Its latest version for me, is when I'm talking about mental strength. I think that even as a younger me, I was so drawn to figuring out those things that I think I would have been drawn and compelled to spend my time sharing with the world what I learned about that topic versus just, making a company more money by selling 10% more widgets than I did the prior year. So.
Now, what have you learned, being out in the world nowadays? Are you seeing younger people kind of following that same corporate path? Is that as maybe popular as it was when you were younger? Or do you see young folks today, wanting to kind of form their own path?
Yeah, I think younger generations, and this just isn't my opinion, Lee, this is, there's plenty of data to back it up. I think today's younger generations you see a lot less of the, the lifers, the ones that go into a company and say, wow, I feel blessed and lucky that I have a steady paying corporate job. I'm going to stay here. I'm going to stay loyal to the company. I feel, lucky to have this position, and I'm going to rise up the ranks. And I think statistically speaking, we see that that's happening less and less as younger generations are figuring out the key driver of their life, their professional life, needs to be what brings them meaning. How do they find a sense of purpose in their work? How do they maximize the impact they're making and the meaning that they're drawing from their jobs versus just staying beholden to a job for sake of staying beholden to a job?
Do you think that that's because maybe there's less trust on both sides? From the corporation side, there's maybe less trust that the employee's going to stick around for the long haul. And then from the employee side, they're not trusting that the corporation's maybe going to keep its word and fulfill the promise that they've stated.
Yeah, I think the overlay of just as a culture where we are, right, that, we have a hard time even agreeing on what the facts are anymore, Lee, right? And, I'm not getting into politics at all. I'm just saying, it's a truth that we're becoming in many ways more divisive in some places as a society and a culture. And I do think that bleeds over into the corporate world where, there is more opportunities to breed mistrust than ever before. And, I do hope that the listeners out there look at it instead as a message of hope that in your own world, in your own situation, if you can lean forward and trust the other party to come to a better outcome than you're currently at, that can only be a good thing moving forward.
Now, in your book, The Mentally Strong Leader, is it a how-to book on how to become mentally strong, or is this a book based on research of what you found successful people had certain traits, or is it both?
It's really both. And just by way of quick definition, mental strength is the ability to regulate your emotions, your thoughts, and your behaviors productively, even in adversity. As I like to say, in other words, it's how you manage internally so you could lead externally. And I think, Lee, most of us know that we need to do that, inherently to succeed. We have to be able to some extent to regulate our emotions, thoughts, and behaviors productively. But guess what? It's really, really hard to do that. And, what I've been learning in my research is the effort is worth it, though. When you can build the habits to increase your mental strength, it's like training your brain for achievement. One piece of research I did across, the decades I've been studying mental strength, we asked 3,000 executives thinking of the highest achieving organizations you've ever been a part of that overcame the most obstacles. What were the attributes of the key leader in that organization? And we found a whopping 91%, Lee, of the respondents described, even though they didn't know they were describing this at the time, they described mental strength in some form. Specifically, the leaders flexing one of 6 core mental muscles: fortitude, confidence, boldness, decision-making, goal focus, the ability to stay focused on your goals, and even messaging, your ability as a leader to message positively to the troops, to keep a positive aura about your communications and a quality to your presence and to your intent. So, yes, it is a the Mentally Strong Leader is a how-to book on how to build those mental muscles to become mentally stronger. But it's also based on just a ton of deep research to show that really it's the leadership superpower of our time, mental strength. It's how you train your brain for achievement when you're able to build those mental muscles and regulate your emotions, thoughts, and behaviors productively.
Now, are those traits are you born with them, or are these that you think you can take anybody and teach them these traits?
You can teach anybody. It's an important thing. The opposite of mentally strong, Lee, is not mentally weak. We all have a baseline of mental strength to draw from. You just have to know how to do that. And you do that, by building the habits. And in the Mentally Strong Leader, there's habit building science baked into the book. So in other words, in several ways, habit building science teaches us that if you want to create a habit of anything, including strengthening mental muscles and building your mental strength, it takes repetitions, systems, and frameworks that allow you to repeat behaviors and activities. And the over 50 plus proven tools in the Mentally Strong Leader, those tools are built on systems and frameworks. as well as insight on the very first small step that you should take, which is key for habit building, and what to do in moments of weakness. And here's the good news, Lee. You can, in the Mentally Strong Leader, you could start by taking a mental strength self-assessment to determine what your overall mental strength score is and how you score across each of the 6 mental muscle developments that equal mental strengths: the fortitude, confidence, boldness, messaging, decision-making, and goal focus. And you can find out, okay, which muscles do I need to build, so that you can create your own custom mental strength training program, which is a good thing, right? Because when you go to the gym, you don't go to exercise all muscles all the time. Wednesday might be leg day, Thursday might be back and arm day. So you can create your own custom mental strength training program based on the mental strength self-assessment and the over 50 plus habit building tools in the book, The Mentally Strong Leader.
Now, can you share, like, say I want to work on my confidence muscle. What are some things, some actionable things I can do today to become more confident tomorrow?
Yeah, in the Mentally Strong Leader, there's a ton of habits that you can build based on building your confidence. Just, one example is to, take a self-compassion break. That's what I call it in the Mentally Strong Leader, the book. And it's to help you stop the negative inner chatter, where first you have to, first of all, catch yourself when you're beating yourself up with negative inner chatter. We all do it. And then, step 1 is to stop beating yourself up for beating yourself up. Just accept that you're doing it and go right to step 2, which is, in that moment you catch yourself beating yourself up, Lee, it's important that you talk to yourself like a friend in need. If a friend was asking you, clearly signaling to you that they wanted to tell you a story where they were looking for compassion and empathy, I don't think you would interrupt them after 5 minutes and say, okay, I've heard your story and I've come to the conclusion that you're a complete loser. You would listen to them and, you would talk to them kindly. And so why would you, beat yourself up in that way? You should, do the same. And then you go to the third step in the self-compassion break, which is remembering the 90-10 rule. 90-10 rule is a rule for how you should value yourself, which is to say it should be based 90% on self-worth, self-appreciation, self-love, 10% on assigned worth, what others think of you. And the problem arises when, that 10% of how others should think of you becomes 70, 80, 90%, when 100% of how you think of yourself is based on what others think and not what on you think. The problem arises when you begin to chase approval instead of authenticity. The problem arises when you begin to focus on winning love rather than giving love. And the self-compassion break is just one of the many confidence-building tools you can build to create a habit of confidence in the Mentally Strong Leader.
Now, if I'm a leader right now, is there maybe some symptoms of my people that I should be paying attention to where there might be room for improvement when it comes to their mental strength? Are there some symptoms of people that are lacking mental strength that I can then hand them this book?
Yes. Just as if you would go to the doctor's office, a physician's office to figure out, or let's put it a different way, a physical trainer to figure out where do I need to build and get better? It kind of goes back again, Lee, to the 6 core mental muscles that equate to mental strength. You can look for signs of resilience and fortitude breaking down in employees. You can look for signs of lack of self-confidence, like they're beating themselves up. They're always seeking approval. They suffer from imposter syndrome. They can't stop comparing to other people. You can look for signs of a lack of boldness. They're not taking enough risks. They're not thinking big enough. You can look for signs of, the other 3 core mental muscles: decision-making, that they're indecisive; goal focus, that they can't stay focused on what they're doing; or even messaging, that they tend to get drawn into negativity rather than positivity at work and spread an aura of, kind of a osmosis of negativity rather than just a positive culture. So yeah, based on the mental muscles that equate to mental strength, Lee, you absolutely can look for signs and symptoms that your employees are not as mentally strong as they need to be, along with also, by the way, giving them the mental strength self-assessment that's in the book, The Mentally Strong Leader, to help numerically determine where do they fall in their mental strength rankings.
Now, we're talking about this primarily, obviously, in terms of business. It seems to me that there would be kind of a place for it in the home with maybe a teenager or young person to kind of protect them from maybe some of the fragileness that you're seeing today, or the lack of resilience, or even the fear that a lot of young people are going through and anxiety. Is this something that can also work for a younger person that maybe not in the business world, but it sounds like these kind of traits and these muscles are useful for any age?
100%. And that was the intent when I wrote the book and why I worked so hard on the Mentally Strong Leader. The title, the Mentally Strong Leader. When I say leader, what I'm really talking about is self-leadership. It's just as valuable personally as it is professionally. And I've done studies and data to prove that, the tools in the book can help you just as much as it can personally as it can professionally. If I were to walk into Barnes and Noble, when the book launches, which is on May 7th, 2024, if I were to hope for, what section do I hope to find this book in? I hope to find it in the self-help section, the self-leadership section, because it's not just a business book, although there's tremendous value and potential for all kinds of professionals with the book. It's also a book for self-leadership that you can find personally incredibly valuable.
So when you're doing your work for corporations and businesses, are you doing kind of coaching at the leadership level, or is this something that an organization could hire you to come in and work with their team?
Yeah, they could come. I do a lot of keynotes, so I can come in and do a keynote on the topic of mental strength and arm the audience with tools to help them build their mental strength, including the mental strength self-assessment. I also do detailed workshops, ranging anywhere from, 90 minutes all the way to several days, where we really deep dive on each muscle that equates to mental strength and help people build the habits that will make them mentally stronger. And I do the workshops and the keynotes both in person, of course, as well as virtually as well, which is, obviously essential these days.
So if somebody wants to get a hold of the book or have a more substantive conversation with you, what is the coordinates website and best way to connect?
Yeah, you got it. Go to scottmautz.com, SCOTTMAUTZ.com, and you can you could connect with me there to hire me for a keynote or for a workshop. And you could check out the book, The Mentally Strong Leader. And I've also put together a free gift for your listeners, Lee. If they go to scottmautz.com/mentally strong gift, they can download a free 60-page PDF that will give them in advance the mental strength self-assessment so they could start seeing, what they're going to need to work on from a mental strength standpoint. And it also, the 60-page free PDF also has prompts in there, questions to help you get the most out of the book, The Mentally Strong Leader. So they can go to scottmautz.com/mentally strong gift.
Well, Scott, thank you so much for sharing your story today. You're doing such important work, and we appreciate you.
Appreciate you too and all that you do. Thanks for having me on, Lee.
All right, this is Lee Cantor. We'll see you all next time on High Velocity Radio.